last year, that is Laois's 3-in-a-row champions, Portarlington, who really squashed a Palatine side, 319 to 9 points. It was played in Dr. Cullen Park in Carlow.
Yeah.
But I mean, Portarlington played like experienced veterans that have been around the block. They just squatted them down pretty easy. After a good first quarter by Palatine, Portarlington pulled away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty. Palatine played very well against St. Patrick's of Wicklow. St. Patrick's of Wicklow will tell you they probably didn't play anything like they can, and I would agree with that. But Palatine, it was a good performance in the night from them. Portarlington's experience certainly telling there. Pal missing a few players, like a couple of guys went off travelling for the county final. They were away with it, but you're not going to get away with it the higher up you go. And it's one of those games where the scoreline is in itself a match report. You know everything you need to know by looking at the scoreline. So yeah, was I surprised that Portarlington won? No, I thought it would be closer, especially given that it was on in Carlow. But again, in this competition at that level, when a team like Port are in form and you're not, you're going to be well beat.
Yeah. Moving on from that one. Rhode against Ratoath. David Brady in the wars again, fighting with the Rhode players. This time he said it was giving a dog a bad name. I do agree to a point, but he certainly seemed to be saying something to the Rhode players as they were going past.
Yeah,
now, I mean, do you need a translator for whether it was good or bad?
Yeah, well, look, the footage last night that I saw on GAA would suggest that there wasn't much to it. Mm-hmm. And from what I saw, and I'm only going on what I saw, it's not like there was a mad scrap or anything.
No, it was.
There was a coming together. There was no fists or whatever. Then at the end of the game, obviously, the player and the manager, and I don't know because again, you only see a small part of it. You don't know what they're mouthing continually through the game. You don't know were they walking away and one guy shouted over to another and then they start walking towards each other. Things get heated in a match situation. Ideally, when the full-time whistle is blown, that's where everything should be left behind. Sometimes it spills over. I think if you ask both lads today, what do you think of it? They'd say, look, just got a bit heated, and that's football. That's competitive sport. I wouldn't be going over the top about it. Neither man is shy, but I don't know if either man is guilty. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. I get what you mean. The game itself was an absolute battle. I mean, I kind of knew that it would be that way. Rhode are absolute experts of grinding out results in really, really tough games, but they got outdone by Ratoath this time. 5 points in a row in the second half. That proved the difference between the two teams. Ratoath hitting 5 without reply. 2 from Daithí McGowan, 1 from Jack Flynn, 1 from Cian O'Brien, and 1 from Cian Rogers. That was between the 36th and the 50th minute of the game. And Rhode just didn't really recover from that. They couldn't pull it back, and they lose by 2 points, and Ratoath move on.
Yeah, and Rhode have been a great team enough. Well, they're still a great team enough, obviously. I think Leinster has eluded them in recent years, and that's one thing that they'll probably be frustrated with. They would like to have done more in Leinster. Ratoath, under David Brady, they've been good this year. Meath clubs haven't really impressed in the senior club championship in recent years. I think you'd nearly have to go back to 2002. I think it might have been Dunshaughlin. Could have been earlier than that.
Yeah, that is Dunshaughlin, the last club to win it, 2002.
Yeah. Well, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
And there's a trend, there's a pattern. Ratoath maybe potentially a different animal, and they will look at their semi-final and say it's winnable. Them against the Downs, and the Downs will look at it and say the same. Now, I'm in this situation where I haven't seen too much of any of them. All I've seen of Ratoath is the highlights, and the Downs. I've read about them in a fantastic Luke Loughlin story. He was featured in the Sunday papers this week. I think he did an interview with Christy O'Connor. Very much worth a read. I'd be a big fan of Christy O'Connor. The man produces gold on a weekly basis. This stands out even from Christy's work, which says an awful lot about the interview and whatever. But yeah, now they've won a couple of games. They're on a bit of a roll. The Downs overcame St. Mary's. I know St. Mary's would be disappointed that it ended the way it did. I think once they won Louth, they were determined to have a good run at Leinster. They're one of those teams who, they really wanted to run in the provincial club championship. Some of them kind of turn up in it and they're like, we won our county. That's our main business done. they weren't one of those counties or one of those clubs, and they won their first round, which is great. They beat the Longford champions, but Colin Gaelic. But yeah, Ratoath and the Downs will look at that semi-final in Croke Park, and it's great for them. Like, you have a lot of lads on those teams who've never played in Croke Park, which puts another angle on the game as well. It's about how you handle Croke Park, and I think that is a factor, especially when you have teams who haven't played there too much, and they'll both fancy it.
Yeah,
and then after that in the final, whatever happens.
It's trying
there.
not to be too starstruck by the stadium. It's trying not to be too overcome with the moment that you have got there.
Yeah, and there's that element, but there's also the element of getting used to new surrounds. I remember hearing from a Galway player who played in New York in the Connacht Championship a couple of years ago, and he said the first half was difficult because the city is in your eye line in the background.
Yeah,
that's actually completely new surroundings, and it's really hard to adjust to the new surroundings. And for a lot of people who've played in Croke Park, and I've been now I've never played a match in Croke Park, but I've been on the pitch and just kind of messed around. We had a charity match there once, so I won't say I played a match, but I won't say I've played in Croke Park. I've been on the pitch, and it actually does. I know that's the lowest level, and it might seem silly, but I spoke to a player about this before, and they said, you know what, you're right. A player who had played in, after that, they went on to play in All Ireland and win them and everything, but at that stage, they hadn't played in Croke Park too much, and they said, you know what, you're absolutely right. It does take you a while to maybe get your eye in and just to get used to the way the stands are and the pitch and everything about Croke Park.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's an absolute coliseum, really. Obviously, Ratoath doing some interesting positional switches as well. Eamon Wallace playing at centre half back. I mean, I was saying that when you look at other counties that use the likes of Jack McCaffrey, Gavin White, Paddy Durkin, Oisin Mullen, Owen McLaughlin, like as weapons going forward, Wallace's pace I always found wasn't really maximised when he was playing in the full forward line, but playing him in the half back line, he could be like an Owen Merchant type that he could carry the ball effortlessly from one pitch to the other, and he's a great shooter. Brady, 2 points again.
Yeah, I've worked with David Brady. He's an astute tactician. He really picks up on things. And Brady being Brady, he's not shy in saying it when he's doing his media work. And he's obviously not shy in doing it as a coach. And it's a really clever thing because you can unlock, like, there's one thing defenses and teams cannot mark, regardless of how many they put behind the ball or what tactics they play. There's one thing they cannot stop, and that's speed. And like, it doesn't matter what way a team sets up. If you've got speedy players who can run at them, you're going to get in behind them. You're going to create chances. And Wallace is he has that experience in county football as well, and he's well able to use the ball. So sometimes you're better off putting guys like that in a situation where they're kind of looking ahead rather than looking behind, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Or they're better off coming onto the ball rather than having to come back and retrieve it. And by coming onto the ball, what I mean, well, I shouldn't say coming onto the ball. I mean going forward with the ball and kicking it in and passing it in. And Wallace, now, and I haven't seen a whole pile of Ratoath, but I can imagine, given the skill sets, sorry, that's a horrible rugby word. I was watching the rugby at the weekend. Given the abilities that he has, that makes him sound like a superhero, which, of course, when you see him running, you think he is. That would suit him, I think, to be back there. And he's a clever footballer as well. He's a good footballer. Speed is just one aspect of who he is on the football pitch. Yeah,
no, he's a brilliant player. And you touched obviously on that last game. The Downs won 17, St. Mary's Ardee 12 points. The Downs again looking impressive. Luke Loughlin, I think it was 6 points from play or 5 points from play from him, shining really, really strongly. And then they've got some quality players in there, Kevin O'Sullivan and the like. I mean, really, really promising from the Downs. Them against Ratoath, they'll fancy it.
They will. And that's what I was saying earlier on, that they'll both see it as a winnable game. Now, the Downs, I won't go into too much detail because I would be really bullcrapping you if I did. I haven't seen them once this year, read a few match reports. Looking forward to seeing their game against Ratoath. But Luke Loughlin's story is amazing. And you know what? I think a lot of people might know already, like, Luke Loughlin has told the story himself. Didn't treat himself particularly well, wasn't in a great place mentally. And with a lot of help from Jack Cooney and his Westmeath teammates, got himself right. And hopefully will stay right. And you want him to stay right because, like, obviously he's a very good footballer. Comes across as a very straight and honest lad. And was unbelievable this year in the Tailteann Cup. And yeah, it's good to see someone like him who's had the battles he's had flourishing.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree with you there. They were very impressive in this game. They were 1-8 to 5 points up at half time. An early goal from Kevin O'Sullivan that really set them on their way, and they never looked back.